धर्मो रक्षत रक्षत, जो धर्म की रक्षा करते हैं धर्म उनकी रक्षा। 1 वर्ष पश्चात हम पुनः उस संकल्प को फिर से उठा रहे हैं। 14-15 मार्च 2026 डॉक्टर अंबेडकर इंटरनेशनल सेंटर में आपका निमंत्रण है, केवल एक श्रोता के रूप में नहीं, अपितु एक सभ्यता के पुनर्निर्माण में भागीदार के रूप में। इस स्वयं बोध में हमारे साथ जुड़े हुए हैं तेजस्वी सूर्य, विष्णु शंकर जैन, प्रदीप भंडारी, विनोद तावड़े, अंकित शाह, शमिक मोइत्रा, अनुपम मिश्रा, अवनीश पीएन शर्मा, अतिथि सत्संगी मीनाक्षी जैन, प्रखर श्रीवास्तव, विक्रम सिंह सर, RSN सिंह सर, राजीव नारायणन सर, लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल दुष्यंत सिंह सर, एयर चीफ मार्शल भदूरिया सर, Vineet Gaur ji, he's a serving officer, and many subject specialists and experts. QR कोड आपके स्क्रीन के ऊपर है, जल्दी से रजिस्ट्रेशन करें और इस मंथन में भागीदार बने। इसमें आप निमंत्रित हैं। 14-15 मार्च 2026 डॉक्टर अंबेडकर इंटरनेशनल सेंटर। नमस्कार, आप सभी का ऑल्टरनेट मीडिया में फिर से स्वागत है। हमारे साथ जुड़े हुए PVR नरसिम्हा राव सर। Periana, very warm welcome on the show.
Namaskar, Gayatri ji.
Periana, lot of things are happening. Finally, Iran has been bombarded. Lot of things are changing. God knows. Sorry, I'll make a cut here at 24. Yeah. Okay. So, a lot of things are changing very fast. In this entire scene, I wanted to know about the global Raj Yug of Bharat. Ji.
I have always maintained and still maintain that irrespective of how it may look on the ground, this is the time for India's ascent. This is the time for India to rise very fast as a global superpower, financially, militarily, and culturally, in various ways. India will rise as a superpower in the world. And the position that China was expected to take in the minds of people over the last decade or so, that position will actually be taken by India. That is something I'm very confident of. And particularly this period, starting from 2025, the next 30 years, this is a really great time for India. I did one research. I looked at various mundane charts and to see when countries rise and when countries fall. For example, UK was an unquestioned superpower, but in 1940s and 50s they fell, and US was just an upcoming, just like India now. US was a good financial power, but not a superpower, not anywhere close to Germany, UK, etc. If you go back to early 1900s, and in 1940s and 50s it rose to become the superpower, and now it's unquestioned superpower. Similarly, China, it was just a third world country, but if you look from 1990s, particularly 2000s and 2010s, China just rose in stature, and it was seen not long back as the next superpower who will dethrone United States from that position. So the thing is, these things happen. People think that based on how things are now, this is permanent, but nothing is permanent. Everything is transient. Things change. So I did some research and I identified that when Saturn enters Meena Rasi, Pisces, that chart, if you cast it at the capital of a country, that shows the Rajogas or Duryogas, the great combinations or terrible combinations in that chart. They tell you whether that country will rise or fall, or just status quo will remain during that period. So based on the research, I can go back several of these cycles and everything makes perfect sense. And based on the chart, it does make sense that from roughly mid 1990s till 2025, this is a period of great growth for China. But looking at the chart for when Saturn entered Meena Rasi in 2025, looking at that chart, I see that it is actually a terrible 30-year period for China, and it's a superb 30-year period for India. This is basically the time when India will have a rise very similar to US rise in 1940s and 1950s. So I do expect that India will become a topmost power in the world in coming years. Looking at the poverty on the ground, the large lower middle class, and various infrastructure problems with education, health, etc. If some people are wary of my prediction and they are skeptical about this, I completely understand. It is very reasonable. But the thing is, if people go back to how US was in 1910s, 1920s, etc., 1930s, etc., you will realize that US was not US was not the way it is now. Things happen, things change, and I'm very confident. And the other thing is, looking at China, I do see the same kind of signatures that I in the 2025 to 2055 chart for China that I see in UK's chart in the 1940s and 1950s. So I do expect that China, even though it may seem like they are unquestioned number 2 in the world and may even become number 1, they will fall. They will have a they will have some weakness going forward, and India will rise. And we have seen that India's economy, it has been like in the top 10, then top 5, top 4. Indian economy is just going by numbers. Indian economy has been rising in the last few years, and it has really accelerated in the last 5-6 years, and that will continue. Economically, India will become a superpower, and militarily, because irrespective of how much dharma you have, irrespective of how much culture you have, irrespective of the wealth of your civilization, the thing is, in the end, what matters is whether you can beat somebody, whether you can defeat somebody if they go to a war with you. And not realizing it is what resulted in India's fall in the last 1,000 years. They were physically overpowered by other civilizations which came from the West. But I do expect from India's charts that India will do the right things when it comes to military technology, and they will have the right partnerships with countries like France, Russia, Israel, and even US, and develop technology in partnership with them, use their technology when appropriate, and develop technology along with them, and also develop some homegrown technology. And another thing is, I do expect that in the 2030, 2031 World War III, apart from things like nuclear weapons, etc., what is going to be critical is, I don't have a clear idea of what it is because I'm not a military technology expert, but some kind of micro and nano technologies, military technologies, will be really, really vital in this period. And also a lot of computing, cyber, artificial intelligence, cyber technology, these will be really critical. So it will be more intellectual rather than physical weapons. So developing some of these subtle weaponry, and also some of the micro and nano weapons, I do expect that India will take the right initiatives and will do the right things over the next few years and be ready for 2030s. But one thing I'm confident of is, at the end of 2030, 2031 World War III, India will be positioned as the next superpower, just like US was positioned as the next superpower who dethroned UK after World War II. I am very confident that India will be in that position. Again, like I said, people may be skeptical about this, but I'm very confident of this. And this will continue till 2055. This is basically a 30-year cycle, and these 30 years will see India rising like anything.
So, why is this 30, if any particular planet which is dominating in this
This is not
30?
one particular planet. This is basically a chart that, see, in astrology, there are charts that are active for 1 year, charts that are active for 1 month, charts that are active for 30 years, charts that are active for 300 years, charts that are active for 1200 years, charts that are active for 20 years. So if you look at I think in 2020, there was a Saturn Jupiter conjunction. So that is a 20-year chart. When we look at that chart, the Saturn Jupiter conjunction chart, that clearly shows that 2020 till 2040 is a superb time for India of great rise of prominence in the world. And similarly, this 2025 to 2055 chart, which shows Saturn's Meena Pravesha, this chart shows that this 30-year period is a period when India's destiny will turn. It will go from negative to average to highly positive. This is a great Rajoka time for India. So that is why I'm saying this. And also there is a 1200-year chart, and based on that, what I see is roughly from 2100 or so, the next 1200 years are superb for India. So bottom line is, we are on the verge of correcting the historic wrong. India has been world's topmost power for a long time, for a few millennia. And around 950 AD or so, a bad time started for India. India started a bad 1200-year chart. So in this phase, India slowly fell, and the fall was slow. First the Khiljis, Mughals, etc., and later British came and they just looted everything away out of India. But the thing is, we are on the cusp of a new 1200-year chart, which is awesome for India, and towards that 1200
So,
years.
so next 1200 years are for India.
Yeah, I do expect that India. This is not just a short term like China growing in 1990s, because those medium term charts are also positive. So next 30 years will be good, next 20 years will be good, but from a long term perspective, the next 1200 years, rough. I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly 1200 years. It could be first 800 years or 900 years, but we are talking about a few hundreds of years when India will dominate the world, roughly starting 2100. So whatever we see in our lifetimes in the next few decades is the build up to that. The real peak will come after 2100 AD. But the bottom line is, given all these long term factors, I'm very confident that irrespective of the short term challenges and the medium term challenges, India will handle them well, and India will be blessed with the right leadership who will make the right and selfless decisions for India's growth, and not compromise with India's vital interests when it comes to dealing with other nations. See, one thing is, if a country is rising, those who are already at the top, they will try to create barriers. They will try to put some speed breakers. They don't want people to catch up with. Nobody wants others to catch up with them. So that is what even friends will do to India. But if you have the right leaders, they will know what their leverages are. They know where to compromise and where absolutely not to compromise, where you have to stand for your vital interests, and you have to be firm. And Modi ji has been like that. And in the next few years, if Modi ji is replaced by somebody else, I'm confident that that person will also be like that. In general, the coming years are very
But
positive for India.
Modi ji of late is being hated in India. There's a big churning going on. A lot of people are talking.
Absolutely,
Right
absolutely.
wing is got divided into two parts. One is like Kattar Modi, the other is like we have the right to criticize Modi ji. So a lot of things are churning recently in a very different format.
I am actually not too surprised. I said, as a matter of fact, last March that this period, the first half of 2026, will be bad for Modi ji. He'll be weak. And another expression I used is, he'll be weak, and his only blessing will be that opposition is weaker. So the thing is, he is weak. And also, this is a time that shows some self goals. This is the kind of time when you will shoot yourself in the foot. So some of the criticism may be from genuine reasons or genuine causes. They may be doing something unwise, in my opinion. But the bottom line is, this is temporary. After June there will be some improvement, and after September there will be even more improvement. Actually, after September there will be a lot of improvement. So in general, this is just a bad fair phase for Modi ji, but I don't expect it to be critical or fatal simply because to his power, simply because Rahul Gandhi's chart and Congress chart are much weaker. So if there was a better leader, if there was a more capable leader, they would have taken advantage of this, and they could have actually taken Modi ji down. But I absolutely don't expect that to happen. Modi ji will survive this challenging phase till
A lot of people are
September.
saying Modi should step down and Yogi should take over immediately because Modi ji is not doing anything. That kind of a talk.
Whether that happens in 2026 or 2027, this is something that I have predicted many years back. I do expect Modi ji not to finish this term, not because he's doing a bad job, because he loses interest. I don't think he will be forced out. He will do it voluntarily. But I do expect him to step down. And the person that I shortlisted was Yogi Adityanath ji. I do expect Yogi ji to take over from him, but not because Modi ji is ineffective or he is not. That may be the narrative. Whatever the narrative is, bottom line is, Modi ji has done a terrific job. I do expect Yogi ji to come and for him to do even more terrific job. So bottom line is, irrespective of who's in charge of India, India will do well. India will make strides in various areas: defense, military, financial sector, and technology, various sectors, including artificial intelligence. People thought that in AI, India is struggling, but even in AI, India will catch up in the coming years. In general, India will make great strides in various areas. And particularly after the 2030-2031 war, India will be standing really strong and proud.
Right. And we were also discussing that this is now the Shani Yoga for China. One of our, like a
Yeah.
lot of people say that the biggest threat is US, but you have always been maintaining that it's not US, it's China, which is the biggest threat for India.
For India, the biggest threat is China, but for China, the biggest threat is US. Really, it is like US and China are vying for dominating the world. US has been dominating the world kind of hegemonistically, and China wants to change it. They don't want a multipolar world. They will say that right now because they want everybody to be on their side. But what China wants is not a multipolar world. What China wants is again another hegemonistic superpower, but that to be China instead of US. And that's what China really wants. And that's what China worked towards in the last decade or so. And that's what US is trying to stop right now with Venezuela, with Iran, and possibly in the second half of this year with Greenland. That is what US is trying to do and will try to do. But the bottom line is this is not a good period for China. China's good period was from mid 1990s to mid 2020s. They started a bad phase, a phase when Saturn will show his power to China, and he will show that nothing is permanent, and also the rebellion, in the unhappiness, dissatisfaction that is in the society, that is hidden in the well below the surface of the Chinese society, that will come to the surface and that will really destabilize China. And secondly, economically, China was over aggressive and over ambitious, tried to do too much across the world in the last few years, and it will come back to haunt China in the next few months and the next couple of years. Chinese economy will really take a hit, and that will force them to go for some suicidal aggression against US. One thing is US has been pushing China to corner with Venezuela, getting Nicolas Maduro out of Venezuela, getting control over Venezuelan oil. And Venezuela, I believe, is one of the top oil holders of the world with the largest oil reserves, even though it's very poor quality crude. So getting control over Venezuelan oil now, in the next few weeks, getting control over Iranian oil. So US is pushing China to corner. And apart from oil, they are showing China who's the boss. And
Mm.
obviously, somebody who's ambitious about replacing his boss, they will not be happy if the boss shows who's the boss. So this will force China this frustration at US, and then some of the internal tensions and the financial troubles, they will push China to a corner where China will end up striking back at US and trying to push US to a corner, and US will not back down. That is how the 2030 World War III will start a couple of years down the road. But the thing is, in general, China, this is a time when China will get into a lot of trouble, and they will not be able to deal with it, and they will do something suicidal. Kind of like, let me give an analogy. There may be a student who's top of the class till they go to college, and when they go to college, they see that they are at the bottom of the class or they're in the middle of the class. They become frustrated. They, at any cost, they want to be top of the class. They get frustrated, and then they start getting into drugs, getting into alcohol, and they just ruin everything. So that is going to be the destiny of China in the coming decade. I'm very confident that before 2036, China will break into multiple nations.
So US phase is over, China phase is over. Now it's India's phase, and 1200 years we are going to have.
Yeah.
What more do we
One
get?
small note there. US phase is over, but they will not fall. They will weaken. They will be like kind of like UK in 1940s and 1950s. Still relevant, still a big power, but not the same unquestioned superpower. So US phase of dominance is over, but they will still be a force to reckon with. But China, they will not even be a force to reckon with. They will be like other countries.
So during this time, what will be the status? Because Periana, you mentioned 1200 years, and that actually got my mind triggered about. We have been talking about fall of Islam right from the very first podcast that we did, if you remember, 3 years, 4 years back,
Yeah.
which was loved. I think the first political podcast that was on YouTube.
Yeah.
What will be the status of Islam during these years? Because we have a lot of people here inside the country also.
Well, the 1200 period that I mentioned starts around 2100 AD. It is still about 100 years away. So I expect that by that time, many of these modern religions would have fallen. The next few decades are really critical. As a matter of fact, the big war of 2030, 2031, it may be kind of like an apocalypse. There are certain religious traditions, some of the Abrahamic religions, they have this notion of apocalypse, basically the end of the world, the end times. So my expectation is it will be actually end times, not for the world, but their worldview and their world. So I do think that next decade is critical for Islam, and Islam will considerably weaken across the world. But I also think that some portions, some countries, in some regions, Islam will survive, but it may transformed form, in a more moderate, transformed form, where it has integrated with the local religions and other traditions, and more tolerant, in a more tolerant form. So some form of Islam will survive, but the thing is, the way people understand Islam right now, it may go through severe challenges in the next decade. And,
And what
and
about Christianity?
general 2030, 2031 will be pivotal in many ways. Not only a major war that changes maps and changes the geopolitical order, but some religions may not survive beyond that.
Because, and this is where we are seeing Bharat Sone ki Chidiya. There is no more India. Bharat Sone ki Chidiya. The coming times. The back to, or maybe whatever you say, back to the very strong country.
Yes,
What
yes.
is so particular about India that we have been so much brutalized, we have been tortured, we have been killed, there have been genocides. What is so special that holds our country still together?
Honestly, it's not just us. Across the world, if you go back millennia, you will see that every region goes through ups and downs. Every region goes through terrible suffering. It's basically it's just a cycle of time. And if you go to Puranas, you will see that great empires. There were great empires before. In Yogava system, for example, there is a story, Vasishta tells Ramaya story, where there is a kingdom that prospered like anything, that had the greatest civilization ever that was on earth. And then they got into a war, and they were flying vehicles in the air, and they were dropping exploding things, and the whole city vanished in a day. So see, the thing is, people think that some of the modern technology was recently invented and so on. But the thing is, civilization has existed from times immemorial, and great empires rise and they fall. So the thing is, this is all the planets as they move in the zodiac. There are cycles of positive and negative times. As I said, around 950 AD, a really terrible time started for India, which shows being in slavery, being oppressed, being suppressed, and losing your identity. So this was just a cycle. This 1200-year period overall, of course, entire 1200 may not be homogeneous, but in general, this 1200-year period is a period of suffering for India. But the thing is, I am confident that we are towards the fag end of that phase.
.org. He also has a YouTube channel. I'll pin both of them in the chat box so that you can see right there while you're commenting, and comment, especially about the talks that we have had. Give your suggestions, give your reviews, give your feedback. It helps us improve. It helps us bring new perspective also at times. And don't forget to scan the QR code so that you can register for the website for the conference that we are about to have soon. इसी के साथ जय हिंद, जय श्री राम, हर हर महादेव.
Jai Hind, Jai Sri Ram.